what happens to your brain if you're staring at screens all day without taking a break? You're asking the right girl, because I'm Rachel, the neuroscientist. Now, brain cells, or neurons, are hungry little creatures. They don't just work for nothing. They do expect a copious amount of oxygen and glucose in return. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking more screen time, more work, more oxygen and glucose. But actually, the brain's total fuel requirements remain relatively stable, even after particularly cognitively demanding days. That is because the brain can shuffle resources around to whichever structures and regions need it most. Evolution really hooked us up with that one, because thing number one, the brain is already the most energy consumptive organ in the body by quite some distance. If it required yet more fuel every time we used it, then ancestral humans could have easily found themselves in a fatal paradox where a particularly hard day of tracking and hunting a mammoth increased their requirements for mammoth stew more than when they had started out, right? The thing is, for most of our evolution, our daily tasks were much more varied. This system of shuffling resources to the structures and regions of the brain that need them most worked because we were using different structures and regions from one task to the next. Even tracking a woolly mammoth for days on end is ostensibly more varied cognitively than navigating a screen for 8 hours a day. Now, the thing is, neurons don't just eat, they also do the other thing, which is fine. The brain has its own cleanup team to change that litter tray periodically, but they can only work so quickly. If you're using the same structures for 9 hours a day, and by the way, also taking your breaks by doing a very, very similar cognitive task, looking at a screen, it accumulates faster than they can clear it away. And when those waste products accumulate, they can produce a feeling of brain fatigue or existential despair. Left to stew in their own filth for long enough on a consistent basis, that can also ostensibly damage the neurons. Worry not, you can help your brain's cleanup team with that litter box situation by simply taking breaks every hour or so. Even 5 to 15 minutes is enough.
To be honest, that's new info to me, that our brain doesn't run out of this stuff. But I understand how it uses different parts of the brain to allocate more energy to the parts you're using more, which is why using the screen so often, that's bad, you know what I mean? Because you're only using one part of your brain to process everything, and you don't really use other parts of your brain, yada yada, you know what I'm saying?
Here's how scrolling on your phone all day can affect your brain. When you stare at a screen all day, it doesn't just tire your eyes out. It also messes with the chemicals in your brain that controls focus and mood. Every time you scroll, click, or swipe, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine, which is the feel-good chemical that rewards you for things that feel satisfying. The problem is the constant stream of notifications, videos, and updates flood your brain with dopamine over and over again. This makes your brain crave quick, easy rewards, and over time, it becomes harder to focus on slower, more demanding tasks like reading or problem solving because they don't give you the same instant payoff. Meanwhile, social media can also mess with another hormone, oxytocin, which is tied to feeling connected with others. Instead of boosting oxytocin like real-life social interactions do, scrolling through pictures of other people's perfect lives can leave you feeling anxious, lonely, or not good enough. The more time you spend comparing yourself to others online, the worse your mood can get. At the same time, all that screen use overstimulates your brain and wears it out, leading to mental fatigue. This happens because your brain's reward system gets out of balance. Studies have shown that too much dopamine from screens can make real-life experiences like spending time with friends or finishing a challenging project feel less satisfying, leaving you restless and emotionally drained. So, to keep your brain healthy, make sure that you spend time doing offline activities that naturally boost oxytocin, like exercising or hang out with friends, and give your brain a chance to reset. You'll feel more focused, less stressed, and more connected to the world around you.
So the thing with not enjoying other things as much as often because the screens give you so much dopamine, I feel that's common knowledge nowadays because everyone talks about that. But the fact that or I've already known this, but the fact that he touched on the point where the screens make you feel more connected to people even when you have no connection at all. So then when you're in real life, then it feels different and not as important. Or the screens seeing people's pictures and stuff makes you feel just as connected if you were to be with them in real life, you know what I mean? So that's that's a good way to think about it. I never really knew how to put that into words, but I kind of thought that was an issue already.
This is some of the scariest shit that I've read in a while. Why did I just find out that social media and excessive scrolling can cause something called popcorn brain, and it might be the reason why behind you have such trouble focusing on things and why your short-term memory's gone out the window. Yes, you heard me right. Popcorn brain. I've heard of popcorn lung, but popcorn brain sounds a lot scarier if you ask me. Popcorn brain refers to when your brain gets so used to constant fast stimulation such as TikTok, Reels, short form content that it begins to struggle with slower tasks such as reading, writing, or working. You know, real world stuff. When I take just a second to think about it, it makes total sense. I don't say this to brag, but growing up I was a really smart kid. I was put in the gifted program. I was always reading above my grade level. But when I got to high school, you know, junior and senior year is when I really ran into a roadblock. You know, my grades started slipping. It was really hard for me to focus in class. And honestly, I was just so disinterested by my schoolwork. And when I think back, that was the time in my life where I was spending the most amount of time on my phone every day. I'm talking 7, maybe 8 hours watching TikTok and Reels. It is the phone. The phone is making you dumber. You have to make a change. You have to stop this from happening to yourself. Do you want your brain to pop like a salted buttery kernel? No, I didn't think so. Neither do I. Lock your phone up at night. Start setting time limits on your apps. If you want a good screen time app, I'll put the one that I use in the caption, but you gotta promise me you're gonna do something. Because the only person that's able to step in and do something about this and stop the deterioration of your intelligence is you. So follow along so we can quit doom scrolling together and stop our brains from being cooked any further.
Yeah, to be honest, it really is the phones. I think like everybody knows it, but it's like it's so hard to break out of, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with me, how like he was saying that like he used to be like a gifted kid doing super good, but then in high school he started slacking because you know I'm in high school, I'm doing the worst I've ever been, you know what I mean? And I think it is screens. I mean, like I don't know, I have trouble like staying focused and stuff like that, so I don't know. It's probably the screens because I've always been on screens my whole life. But you know, if you guys enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Peace out, YouTube. Have a good day.